No, this was not a suicide attempt. I did this just to experience the trip, and God, part of me regrets it so much. My HPPD after this is worse than ever, and I still feel sluggish and quite depressed. I'm 15 years old, I'm 5'10", and I weigh 130 pounds. Without further ado, here it is. I live with my grandfather after my parents kicked me out. However, this night they were letting me stay with them. I took the pills around 7 p.m. and didn't feel much for the first 10 minutes. I wrote 1350 milligrams DPH on my arm to remember what I had taken. Then it hit me, much harder than any of my previous experiences. The come up felt like it was the peak of some of my other trips. My body felt heavy and my stomach started to hurt. I just sat on my phone telling people what I had done. Most people didn't even know what it was. Now, my first real hallucinations, spiders. Not just the tiny black spiders I see on 700 milligrams. These were real, huge. They looked like brown recluse, except they had bright and vibrant patterns, almost beautiful in a sense. At this point, the whole room was fuzzy, like my HPPD times 5, and I could see strange shapes forming inside the walls, like there were creatures inside of them. I began to hear my dead friend's voice calling my name, and knew his screams weren't real. This is where I decided to experience the real horror. I dimmed the lights and turned on some music, partially to mask the noise of my friend. Wolf Girl by Machine Girl, my favorite to listen to on DPH. I remember the sound of the music felt more intense than ever, and almost scared me. The creatures inside the walls, now large snakes and tracers, moved and danced to the sound of the beat. I stared at them for about 10 minutes, and at this point, I was having quite fun. Then, I felt spiders crawling all over me, and then saw a black mamba snake climb across my body. I felt almost incapacitated, like I could barely control my body. I tried to move around to get some water, and hit my head hard at least 3 times. I barely made it back to the room I was staying in, and had quite the headache now from hitting my head so many times. Of course, I tried to turn on the TV, which I couldn't, and hit my head again on the desk. I decided just to go back to laying down, try to focus on the visuals. Then my grandpa came in the room. I didn't know he was coming over, but apparently he was. Turns out this is real, and he thinks my behavior was because of HPPD and a lack of sleep. He tried to speak to me, but he kept disappearing and reappearing. I couldn't make a coherent response to anything he said. My grandpa immediately recognized my symptoms, as he had almost taken me to the hospital on 950 milligrams before. He said I needed water and to come upstairs. I don't even remember what I said, as at this point I was completely incoherent. But I tried to go upstairs. I remember the room downstairs felt off. Everything was so blurry. I saw faces of people I used to know, floating in see-through with angry looks on their face. I felt so horrible, and my head hurt so bad. I was definitely caught this time. As I swayed my body upstairs, I had no motor control whatsoever and began hitting the walls and knocking things over around me. I fell while walking up the stairs, hit my head on the hard floor, and I began to bleed. I went upstairs and, thank God, my grandpa was gone, but my mom was there. I told her I was really tired and I hit my head, and she went to get me a Band-Aid. My grandpa had left me a water bottle. I tried to grab it, but my hand was empty. Nothing was there. Turns out, the water bottle was a few inches away from where I grabbed it. I hit the bottle and it spilled. My mom came back, clueless as usual, and thank God she helped me bandage me up and said to just get some rest. She would take care of the spill. I sometimes miss her and I feel like I should have thanked her for this. I wasn't even at the peak of the trip yet, but I saw a package at the door. For me? I hadn't ordered any package, but it had my name on it, and it was labeled Tattoo Kit all over it. Ecstatic, I somehow made it downstairs into the room where I was going to sleep. I opened it, and although it had been labeled Tattoo Kit and was really small, it contained crystal meth from Breaking Bad, DMT, weed, and an electric scooter. I took the drugs and put them in my safe where I keep my substances. Thank God I managed to keep it hidden from my parents. The room I was in was a mess, obviously, and I was covered in bruises and blood. At this point, I wasn't even hallucinating spiders. It was a whole new world of darkness. The walls were sinking in, everything echoed, and I didn't even know what day it was. I laid down after supposedly stashing my new drugs in my small safe. They turned out to be toys for my little brother. I looked around the room, seeing the usual spiders. This time they were black widows crawling on my face. I wasn't that fazed and decided I was hungry. God, I am so stupid. But I got up to go over to the next room and get food. This is where Eiriel truly began. When I exited the room I was supposed to spend the night in, the main downstairs room wasn't that anymore. It was my ex-best friend's house. As I wandered through his supposed stashes of weed, nicotine, and shrooms, more of my brother's toys, I saw his house was infested with centipedes. I began to run. I believe I was actually crawling and just flinging my body around my house, this time injuring my leg and probably making a commotion. Then he appeared. Dude, what the fuck? You aren't supposed to be here. Then, he just vanished into thin air. Very strange. I decided to exit his house and walk back home, but as I was about to crawl upstairs, I encountered a strange entity. It was what I imagined to be a ghost. It didn't have a face or anything. It was almost this fog-like creature, almost see-through and filled with strange colors. I felt a dark connection to the entity and almost comforted by its presence. I got closer, fascinated by this dark pulsing entity. I reached my hand out and began to touch it. It felt like cotton candy almost, but my hand could reach through it. But then, as I put my hand in more, I felt a horrible sting. I felt like it had burned, cut me, bit me, or whatever. Although I didn't see any wound, I definitely felt pain in my hand, almost like a decent-sized cut combined with a second-degree burn. Then I felt extremely dizzy and like I was going to pass out. Blue lights began flashing all over the place, shadow people darted around me, and my body felt so heavy but so light at the same time. This is where I believe I suffered my first seizure of the trip and blacked out. God knows when later, I woke up, but it wasn't the next day yet. I was again in a different place. It was back home at my grandpa's house in my new room, except something was very different. The room felt fake, like it wasn't my real room. The door would not open and almost all of my possessions were gone. I noticed a camera in the corner of my room. I was trapped. I remember I felt the most numb feeling I had ever felt before. I couldn't even read the writing on my arms. I felt as if I had lost everything. As I stood up, I still felt heavy and very dizzy. I tried to open my window, but it happened again. I had another seizure. Less visuals, but more incapacitating. At this point, I gave up and just lay there. I wondered what happened after death. I couldn't quite comprehend death, or life really. I probably should have died. Wonder why I didn't die years before this. I just lay there, my body so frozen but shaking at the same time, and eventually blacked out or fell asleep, probably both. I woke up on the floor of the room I was staying in, covered in my own vomit. What the actual fuck? I had slept on my side. I could have died or been extremely injured multiple times in this experience. I was so hungover and tired, but I had the energy to clean up after myself. I don't remember much else of that day, but I kinda just sat around watching TV. My parents didn't even say anything, and I gave my brother his toys back. I decided to throw away the rest of my Benadryl, but part of me doubts I'm ever going to really quit. It's like a horror movie or true crime to me, so horrible and dark I enjoy it. I wonder if this drug is going to kill me, or if the conditions I have from using it so much already have. I don't think this will be the last report, although I want it to be. Hopefully I can make it to 18 without using this drug, but I doubt it.